Tomorrow night on A Current Affair, Peter Werrett uncovers the death traps on our roads.
28% had unroadworthy conditions ranging in severity from pretty bad to awful.
A Current Affair, tomorrow, 6:30, following National 9 News at 6.
Are you married?
Yes, very happily.
Oh, you suck.
These women love being laughed at. A job that keeps them ticking. Sunday, 7:30, 60 Minutes on 9.
Good evening, I'm Graham Kennedy. John Mangos and I bring you the news coast to coast. John, is there any news fit to see on this Wednesday evening, the 13th day of September 1989?
Graham, tonight, Bob Hawke puts his credibility on the line over the pilots' dispute, saying he doesn't deserve to be Prime Minister if the pilots win. Fergie announces she's expecting another royal baby and a record jump in Sydney's Blue Mountains.
In the Nine Network newsroom now is Ian Ross.
Thanks, Graham. John, domestic airlines and the federal government are confident they're slowly breaking down the pilots' dispute. Ansett and Australian Airlines have begun flying limited services using management pilots. But more importantly, Prime Minister Hawke says 2 senior captains have broken ranks with their federation, agreeing to resume work. Declaring he doesn't deserve to be Prime Minister unless he wins the dispute, Mr Hawke warned pilots who resigned that they should abandon their hardline stand.
And those pilots should be under no illusion. Australia's domestic airline industry will in any event be fully restored, and in those circumstances there will be no place in it for them.
Mr Hawke also defended compensation to the airlines, saying they're fighting for the economic well-being of the whole country. But that does nothing to satisfy the crippled tourism industry, which has lost $500 million over the past month.
He is undoubtedly Australia's greatest expert on solving disputes. The fact that this one seems to be beyond him is beyond me.
A bigger pay packet for 700,000 Australians tomorrow as they receive the first increases resulting from last month's national wage case. The trade union movement has overwhelmingly endorsed the wage case decision, granting workers a rise of up to $15 a week. Building and metal workers and storemen and packers are the first to benefit, and the union movement is warning of industrial action unless employers grant the rise to all other workers by the end of the year.
It is our view that every worker will be able to get a wage increase during the course of this year, and we will review the position accordingly.
Overseas, another setback for the Colombian drug trade with the seizure of more than a tonne of cocaine. The drug was being transferred from a mothership to a fleet of speedboats when United States Coast Guards pounced.
Dead ahead about 50 yards. He's moving again. He's running. Shoot.
Shots were fired before some of the boats surrendered. While $60 million worth of cocaine was seized, some speedboats escaped with up to 4 tonnes of the narcotic. As thousands of East Germans stream across its borders, Hungary has given the first indication that it will eventually reimpose visa restrictions. But despite criticism from Eastern Bloc neighbours, it's refusing to put a time limit on its open border policy, saying that would cause panic among fleeing East Germans. Meanwhile, the refugees are adjusting to life on the other side of the Berlin Wall. Many have already secured jobs. Others are reacquainting themselves with long-lost relatives. And spectacular sights from Europe's biggest volcano. Mount Etna began rumbling over the weekend. Soon after, streams of red-hot lava poured down its sides. Some of the lava flowed for more than a kilometre, but it hasn't threatened any communities. And that's all from the newsroom for now, but I'll be back with more later in the show.
Isn't that wonderful news about Fergie?
What?
She's pregnant.
My God, who do they suspect?
Her husband, of course, the Duke of York. He's thrilled to bits.
Oh, right.
He was so excited at the news, he was doing tricks with his chopper.
You'd think he'd give it a rest, wouldn't you, at the moment?
He leads such a busy life as a pilot, they're not sure if he'll be present at the birth.
Oh, well, as long as she turns up there. That's the main thing.
You know, there's a theory that the high altitude affects testosterone levels. This is funnier than you think, folks.
This is really funny because for 2 hours we've been doing testosterone, testosterone. But we knew this would happen.
And we got it right in the rehearsal. And
no, but it's good.
Anyway,
it's relaxed us now.
Oh, hasn't it?
Yes, it really has. I'm just thrilled I've got the old brown jockettes on.
What I was trying to say was that there's a theory that at high altitudes...
If you're up there...
Right, that it affects testosterone levels. Yeah. Right, and that it's less likely that a pilot will father a boy.
So, I know what you mean. If Prince Andrew, say, was a coal miner working down there, the baby, in all probability, would be a boy.
Yeah, it's an interesting theory.
It is an interesting
What do you think they'd have if he'd been a deep-sea diver, I wonder?
Barramundi?
The news was announced about the same time the Duchess of York arrived in London to promote her 2 new books, and the secret was well and truly out.
Congratulations!
Inside, she told guests it would be nice for Beatrice to have someone to play with. She and Andrew were excited about the prospect. Her books are for children and star Budgie the Rogue Helicopter and dedicated to 13-month-old Beatrice. Not many publishers have an HRH on their authors list, nor has there been a launch of a book for toddlers which has drawn such a high-powered and breathless audience.
It's the happiest news any couple can have, isn't it?
How do you think she looked today?
You'd expect her to look radiant, and she did, don't you think?
She's obviously very excited. She said in her speech that she was over the moon about it and very thrilled.
The Duchess was roundly criticised for leaving Princess Beatrice during her extended visit to Australia last year. And it even fell to the little princess's nanny to capture her first steps on video to show Mum and Dad when they arrived home from a recent tour of Canada. As always, Fergie is unapologetic about the way she runs her life.
Beatrice is just so happy. She's a placid, happy little girl. She's got everything she needs, and she's got devoting parents who see her as much as they possibly can. And surely that's the answer for every child.
The new baby will be born in March. If it's a boy, he will take precedence over Beatrice and will be 5th in line to the throne. To those cynics, and there are plenty of them, the announcement of the birth and the release of the book all in the 1 week is just too much of a coincidence. And it seems there may even be more mini novels in the pipeline by HRH, the Duchess of York. She reveals that it was the boredom of pregnancy that eventually encouraged her to write in the first place. In London, I'm Robert Penfold reporting for Graham Kennedy Coast to Coast.
Princess Di is helping to win the war against drugs.
Yes, but unfortunately Fergie is losing the battle against inflation.
Princess of Wales makes no secret of her abhorrence of drug smuggling and is becoming a frequent visitor to the Customs and Excise. Today they laid on a drugs burn for her. Millions of pounds worth of seizures, mostly cannabis, were waiting to be incinerated in a furnace near Dover. The princess pushed the button and the drugs turned to smoke, carefully ducted away from the royal nose. Dover is on the front line for traffic from Europe. The driver of this lorry is serving 10 years after sniffer dogs found £2 million worth of cannabis hidden in side panelling. Others use false petrol tanks, sills and door panels. Underneath a false roof on this Range Rover were compartments used to stash £30,000. Traces of cannabis were also found, giving a strong clue as to the source of the money. This afternoon, the princess was back at the wheel of the customs cutter Vigilant, which she launched last December. The officers were very impressed, saying afterwards that the princess is very well informed about the drugs problem.
The Princess of Wales says that drugs slow you down, muddle your mind, and make you sleepy.
Yes, I get the same effect when talking to her husband, actually. Give a man enough rope and he'll become a bungee jumper. That's what I always say.
The Blue Mountains west of Sydney are home to some of Australia's most breathtaking scenery. And the Skyway cable car over the rugged Jamison Valley is almost a national institution. For 3 daring New Zealanders, the perfect location to show off their skills at bungee jumping. Aerial free-falling at the end of a rubber rope. A crazy sport with a special appeal.
It's the thrill. I mean, it's a little bit like hang gliding. I mean, why do people do any of these dangerous sports? get pretty cosseted these days. We've got to go out and find a few thrills.
To get some idea of the scale of the jump, from here to the valley floor is roughly 300 metres. That's nearly the same height as Centre Point in the middle of Sydney. After dummy runs with a weight to test the length of the bungee... How are you feeling right now, mate?
Nervous.
Bloody good.
Then, just after midday, Sean Barry's big moment.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go!
First thing I saw was that cable went past and then these trees just come flat out, straight at you. Everything's a blur. And you're just looking and you're waiting and you're feeling for your ankles to come tight, you know, you don't, and you're waiting for this thing goes ping. It was sensational. I don't know. Sensational. Sensational. I'm lost for words.
The three Kiwis are keen to develop the sport in Australia. Already in New Zealand, it's multi-million-dollar business. Russell Bishop. Graham Kennedy, Coast to Coast.
I wonder how they make that bungee cord.
Well, apparently, first of all, you buy 300 gross of condoms.
Now, listen, what happens if the rope breaks?
They pick you up with a blotter. Who's sorry now? Prince Andrew is sorry now. More royal crappy nappies for Pappy. He's sorry now. We have phone calls as a result of last night's Coast to Coast. Last night on Coast to Coast, we haven't had to ask for an audience to come in for 12 months. And we did a simple request last night. We showed the phone number once, and we're booked out now until 2020.
Right. Guaranteed our futures. That's lovely.
A Manly viewer questions last night's On This Day. He says Maurice Chevalier couldn't have died in 1960. I don't think I said that. I was wrong, though. I said he probably didn't make any films after 1960. That's not correct at all. The viewer goes on to say he must have lived till the age of at least 83, as he made a movie called Jessica in 1962. Quite right. He died in 1972 at the age of 84. A Newtown woman says the fact that Bond got off is another big cover-up. Here's John.
I certainly could not agree with that woman at all. And neither could you. What a ridiculous thing to say.
Speaker Jay Mangos, authorisation A. Bond.
A. Bond, absolutely.
An obvious homosexual from Belrose says, the show is so false. Is there any ad-libbing, or is every word on autocue? Every word is on autocue, and we can prove it. We've never pretended that we don't read every word of Coast to Coast. So what's wrong with you, dear viewer? Some viewers from Maryland say Graham would be funnier if he didn't tell jokes. I'm not sure how to do that. An Arncliffe girl asks Graham to repeat the Robert Mitchum face. Oh, that's that impersonation. It's absolutely wonderful. No, I do that infrequently. It won't come up again now till 1993. Stiff cheddar. This is worrying. An Elsternwick man thinks that Graham Kennedy is... would you read that, John?
An Elsternwick man thinks that Graham Kennedy is very sexy.
Yes. Well, you know, at my age, you can't be choosy. Here's a robot story. What do you think of robots, Zun?
I haven't seen a robot yet that even comes close to a human being.
What about the one on Perfect Match?
Who, Dexter? You mean Dexter?
No, Greg Evans. I didn't write that, Greg. Tim Evans wrote that. Tim's the one to hate.
Head over heels with excitement, this remarkable robot made a public debut at an exhibition in the United States today. But we're not sure why you'd want a robot that exercises for you. Inventors at the show in San Francisco considered it a breakthrough in the search for a machine that can do anything we can do. They also had to hand it to this device that speaks in sign language. Janelle Provost, Graham Kennedy, Coast to Coast.
The much-awaited Rock Legends tour is up and running and rocking and rolling.
Don't let him steal it away. Gonna learn to dance if it takes me night and day.
It's the unforgettable music of the 50s, sung by people now in their 50s, except the ageless and still supreme Mary Wilson.
Actually, I'm celebrating my 30th anniversary as a Supreme. Yeah, that's quite something, huh?
How old were you when you started?
6. I want you to do for me is give it to me when you come home, hey, baby. Whip it to me when you come home. I mean, it's fantastic. When I heard that Bo Diddley was on the show, Chuck Berry, the Everly Brothers, Leslie Gore. I used to work with Leslie Gore on the Dick Clark tours back in 1964.
A lot of kids have been misled by what they think was rock and roll. And this is rock and roll, what you're hearing tonight. This is rock and roll, not a bunch of screaming guitars, you know. It's a new music. They could call it new music, anything they wanted, but lay off the word rock and roll. Oh, diddle, what a baby diamond ring. And if that diamond ring don't shine, he gonna take it to a private.
And for the 53-year-old Cole Joy, the concert MC, playing to his biggest audience ever, 11,000 people, and in this company, it was a new career peak, and he cherished it.
How am I coming up? Like a real person? Like a real person out of the 60s. You wouldn't believe this. I got my suits made by Andy Ellis in 1959, right?
So this is an original?
No, he made this for me the other day. Same bloke. Yeah, but I've got some originals, but they're getting a little bit tight on me now.
Now you can't beat the sound of a rock and roll rhythm. Roll, rock, roll. When they first found the beat, they wouldn't listen. When I want you in my arms, when I want you, and all your charms, whenever I want you, all I have to do is dream, dream, dream.
Amazing. What was that big thing that happened then when I said amazing? Big sort of flashing light. Hasn't Bo Diddley changed? She used to be so gorgeous when she was married to John Derrick. Remember that? Bo Diddley?
Still to come, Academy Award winner Gene Hackman gets back on track for his latest movie. And a new species for one of the world's most popular flowers. All ahead on Graham Kennedy, Coast to Coast.
Starring John Mangos, the Calamari Kid. You should see his testosterone.
John F. Kennedy and Jacqueline tied the knot on this day in 1953 in a match that was blessed by the Pope. They brought new glamour to the White House, despite or because of the fact that he proposed to her over a dish of asparagus. Of course, President Kennedy had a lot of side dishes.
Nikita Khrushchev became the first secretary of the Soviet Communist Party on this day in 1953, replacing Malenkov. He was Soviet leader during most of the Cold War period and looked somewhat like a refrigerator himself.
One of Australia's top surfing stars, Bernard Farrelly, was born on this day in 1944. Better known as Midget or Midge, he was the first Australian to win an international surfing event when he took out the Makaha title in Hawaii in 1963. Did you get that? The Makaha title in Hawaii in 1963. His success started thousands of young Australians on the road to the beach and the dream of being a professional surfer. Or at least that's what they told their parents. He still lives in the back of a panel van and can now hang only 5.
An historic decision in Washington today to return the bones of 19,000 American Indians to their rightful owners. Before the first whites arrived, American Indians headed west when tribal elders warned of destruction to come. They were right. Numbers diminished as whites took over the land without so much as a polite request. Indian leaders say the destruction has continued into modern times, with archaeologists continuing to dig up and stake claim to the sacred remains. Today in Washington, a victory for the minority, with the Smithsonian Institute handing back the bones of 19,000 Indians to their rightful owners. In the past, bones have been handed back only to direct descendants, but now they're being returned to custodians of particular tribes. No one's sure what will come of the remains. Apparently, tribal law prevents them being buried again. The Red Indians don't bury their dead.
No, they don't. I've known this for a while. If you're an Apache or a... name another tribe.
Navajo?
Eh?
Navajo?
Navajo or an... Right? No, you don't bury... Because they believe... Red Indians believe that if you bury the body in the ground, that traps in the spirit. So they just lay the Red Indian dead bodies on a raised platform so the animals can't get at them.
They just leave the bodies on a platform out in the open?
Yeah, yes, which is the reason you never walk past an Indian cemetery on a hot, windy day. Because, I mean, you know, I'd have reservations about that. Oscar-winning actor Gene Hackman looks set to get another nomination for the film on which he's currently working.
All aboard!
Just north of Vancouver, a spectacular wilderness rail line so desolate that even someone trapped on a train by the mob wouldn't try getting off. That's exactly the situation Ann Archer and Gene Hackman face in Narrow Margin. Today, Hyams' crew has been perched trackside for hours, rehearsing with the train for a crucial night shot.
Trains to me are incredibly romantic and suspenseful and deeply mysterious ways to get about. And I don't know, they just conjure up these movies that I saw as a kid on television, these wonderful old mysteries with Humphrey Bogart and people clattering in and out of compartments and lurking along corridors. And
Send the train, Jack.
I fell in love with the idea of doing a film that was set on a train because it afforded the opportunity to make that grown-up thriller.
Yeah, Peter. Okay, 2:30 call tomorrow. 2:30 p.m. call tomorrow.
Back in Vancouver, the train has been duplicated on a soundstage for the interior photography. Every wall panel and window is removable, so Hyams' camera can fully capture the claustrophobic feeling of, well, stumbling into a cabin and finding a dead body.
Jesus. They took her. Oh. There was a woman in here. They thought she was you.
I was really thrilled to work with Gina, and it did have an influence on me. I liked the part, I liked the character, and I liked the script because it was very suspenseful. It was one of those scripts that you didn't want to put down because you had to find out how it ended. So that influenced me as well. But Gene was really, I mean, I've been a fan of his since forever.
I'm trying very hard to relate to the people who are around me in a more intimate fashion. My children and my friends, that kind of thing, rather than being so kind of stoic.
Were you stoic, Gene?
I think so, yeah. I think that I had some things mixed up, as do a lot of people, a lot of actors, where you think in order to be a serious artist, you have to be serious all the time. you know, you take yourself too seriously.
Back on the set, it's well past midnight. Those who aren't getting shot or getting in the way of a shot
Am I anyway?
are getting ready to wrap. The commotion of another shooting day will soon dissipate into the still of the Vancouver darkness. A stillness broken only by the distant rumble of a night train.
You're a train lover, aren't you?
I love trains. I adore trains. Why is that funny? I don't know. I love trains, no, but I'm not an expert. I think they're doing their own little show down there. You all right? Shall we expose you on camera? Let's illuminate the... Yes, and have someone shoot them. Oh, look. See the nice group we have in tonight. Ladies and gentlemen at home. See this amazingly rough pan that... No, it's a lovely group. What's
Wouldn't it be awful if someone was here with someone they weren't supposed to be out with?
In 30 years of having audiences with me, that has happened more than once, let me tell you. It's happened, I've seen people go, oh! Truly. No, I love trains. I do love trains. I'm not an expert on trains. I just love being on them. Robbo is an expert on trains. Like Clive can look at an old steam engine and he can name it. You know, he say, oh yes, well that's a yarn event. That's a yarn event A cup stroke 1. Whereas I just say, oh look, a puff puff. So, you know, he's really into trains. Oh, good night.
Now updating the news, Prime Minister Hawke has admitted he's taking the airline's dispute personally, saying he won't deserve to remain the country's leader if the pilots win. But while Mr Hawke stakes his credibility on the issue, a National 9 phone poll has so far shown viewers disapprove of the government's handling of the dispute by a margin of 4-1. A Queensland woman is suing 9 policemen over a bungled raid on her home earlier this year. Police mistakenly raided Cheryl Passfield's home in January, smashing fences, burning furniture and manhandling Passfield and her parents. Mrs Passfield has already won the first round, with the judge ordering police to reveal the names of the officers involved. And that's all from the newsroom. Now it's back to the studio.
The woman who can eat 6 donuts at the same time. Oh, yes. Oh, very interesting. And that was Ian Ross bringing us up to date, while George Danikian is having a clandestine relationship with a star from Hollywood. Here's a coincidence. September is the mating season for the real magpies, but it's also the mating season for the Collingwood Football Club, who are known as the Magpies.
What do you mean?
Well, the Collingwood Magpies always stuff up everything in September too. I mean, they haven't won.
It can be a bit of a laugh watching a magpie swoop down on someone, sending them running for cover. But that's if the someone being attacked isn't you or your child, because there's a very serious side to magpies. Just ask the doctors who treat the people they attack. For some reason, children are more likely to be pecked on the head, face and eyes. But why do the birds attack?
They're a strong territorial bird and they defend their territory from what they perceive to be threats.
And that threat is felt most during September and October, when the birds are mating and building nests. But not everyone is sympathetic.
You get the situation where you have one neighbour will be feeding a tribe and have no problems. The other side of the fence, the other person may throw a stone or a stick and they've got all the problems in the world.
And to help those people out, the Department of Conservation and Land Management has put out a brochure with suggestions of how to make life easier during magpie mating season. Basically, don't get angry, get smart, keep your head down and walk away.
Yes, if you paint 2 big eyes on a hat, all I have to do is look up. I've got a very strange female magpie nesting near me at this time every year in Kirribilli.
What do you mean by strange?
Well, every year she builds this huge, really big nest with no bottom in it.
I wonder why she does that.
Well, obviously she likes sex, but she hates kids.
Yeah. In recent times, exiled former Philippines leader Ferdinand Marcos Luckily, I don't think anybody heard that. In recent
Oh,
times...
I said it's hard to get